Who would have to do that? Okay, perfect. Great. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And I prepared a little presentation for you guys about the one-on-one of your portfolio when it comes to UX. Let's go. So what is UX? You can just unmute yourself and chime in. I'm interested if you all know what UX is. And this is not a test, this is more a collection of thoughts.
User experience?
Yes. UX is user experience. And what is user experience?
How the user experiences your portfolio.
Yeah, that's correct. And how do we make sure that they have a good experience? What are some aspects of it?
You want it to be easy to understand, easy to navigate, easy to read.
Yeah, right. Accessibility is a big one.
Something clean and organized, not too cluttered.
Exactly. Clean and organized so the hiring manager can find easily what they're looking for. Anything else comes to mind?
It should be very simple to use.
Yes. Yeah. Simplicity is key. You can bring in all kinds of animations, but it looks cool, but might make it more complex. And then the hiring manager doesn't know where to click, right? Okay, great. I summarized that a little here, the 4 main points, what user experience means to me. It's really about understanding the user. So before you create a product or a website, really understand the user first. Who are you building for? Who is going to use that website or the app that you're building? And you can do some research, you could do some interviewing. For the portfolio, it's not really necessary. I think we all know a hiring manager. But if you would want to take it there, you could even like reach out to some hiring managers on LinkedIn and ask them what is important to you on a portfolio. And then looking for patterns. So what do other people do? What other portfolios have in common? So you create this kind of familiarity for the user, that they know where to click, know what to expect, and are not totally surprised by crazy animations and something that they don't know how to use. And then also you want to create a structure. You guys said that it should be clean, it should be organized, it should be easy to use. And of course, then you can add some pleasant experiences, some nice UI, some nice colors or images to really wow the user and leave a memorable impression. So now that we know what UX is, why do you need a portfolio? What do you think? You probably already know.
To showcase your skills.
Yes.
If you're going to be a UX designer, your portfolio should be really good.
Yeah, you want to represent your skills, of course, but also as a developer, you want to represent your skills, right?
I kind of see it as like I don't know, like a foot in the door. Like most jobs, you do an interview, and that's your like you send a resume, do an interview. But if you have the opportunity for them to go to your link or to your portfolio, like I feel like I gotta like that's a one up. Like I got a foot in the door now. I can show them how cool I am and what I know how to do. I see it as like an opportunity.
It is. It's definitely an opportunity to get a foot into the door because you're already showing what you can do, and then you can explain it further and present yourself in that interview. Good one. Cool. So you present your skills and your experience, as you already said. You can also explain your process and your approach more. So you can go more into details in your project and say why you did certain things, why you coded it that way, why you chose that language. And that helps sometimes also to get your foot into the door. You show who you are and why you are the best fit. That comes back to the memorable experience that the user should have. And you really want to try to stand out. You can, of course, keep your portfolio in the beginning simple, but then when you're done with that and you have all the content already set, think about what can I do to really make this memorable? What can I do that the hiring manager says, yeah, I want this person in an interview. And the funny thing is, what shocked me the most during my bootcamp experience is that recruiters, 80% of recruiters spend only 3 minutes or less on a candidate's portfolio. Like, think about how much time you are putting into the portfolio, how many hours, and how much sweat and tears go into the portfolio. And then they spend just like a couple of minutes on it, scroll through it, say, okay, this is a great impression that I got. This guy gets or this girl gets an interview, you know. I found that very fascinating, but nevertheless, don't let that intimidate you. Just let that motivate you maybe to create an even more memorable experience and good user experience. So as I mentioned in the beginning, it's really important, no matter what you're building, to know the user at the beginning, to really know who you're building for and tailor the product that you're building, even if it's just a portfolio, to who you're coding for, who you're creating that for. And our users for our portfolio are hiring managers and recruiters. So it can be a hiring manager from the company itself that you're applying to, or it could be a recruiter that is just an outsourced from a company that hires for multiple companies. And it can also be a person that doesn't know anything about coding. It could just be an HR person that looks at the overall look and feel, checks off some boxes, and doesn't really understand what you actually did. So keep that in mind. Also, they have not much time. They're checking hundreds of portfolios per week. They are looking for the best fit and really spend only a couple of minutes on your portfolio. So you really want to make certain sentences or images or projects really stand out. Especially when you like have multiple projects, maybe 10. Do you really want to show all the 10 projects? Because the hiring manager doesn't have time to check all those 10. It's really important to really put the best forward, focus maybe only on 2 or 3 that make you stand out and represent you best, and maybe even tailored to the company that you're applying for. Furthermore, they might not be part of the company, as I mentioned. They might not know much about tech, so keep also your language easy and no jargon. Really try to explain it to your parents, or your grandma is maybe a little bit too much, but your parents or somebody who doesn't know about code. Keep it simple, explain it in an accessible language to everyone, and use not too much jargon or abbreviations. And the hiring managers are also human and like pretty things. So you can keep it very simple, black and white, maybe put a dark mode in. But if you want to grab the attention, think about what could grab that attention, what makes it memorable. Because hiring managers might not know a lot about tech or about your content or what you're exactly doing. Just look at the overall look and feel. So what we do as user experience designers, but also you might have practiced that during the bootcamp, is writing user stories. And you can write user stories for all kinds of projects. And you can also write user stories for your portfolio. And that is really good to do, because after you created your portfolio, you can check them off. You can go through those user stories again and say, hey, did I really answer the user's need that I defined in the beginning? So the first user story could be, as a hiring manager, I want to scan a candidate's experience and accomplishments with ease to identify strong candidates in no time. Here it comes back, they have no time, they want to scan, and they want to just see the most impressive accomplishments of yours. A second user story could be, as a hiring manager, I want to navigate through a candidate's portfolio with ease to find what I'm looking for right away. One of you mentioned that navigation is really important, organization, clean experience. The third you could keep in mind is, as a hiring manager, I want to get a sense of who the candidate is to see if they are a good fit for my team. And how do you present yourself in your portfolio? That could be by having an about me page that tells your story, how you got into coding. It could reflect your personality with sharing a hobby, for example, on your about page. It could be a picture on your main page. It could be in colors that speak to you. Why did you choose the blue color for your font? Maybe because it's a calming color that reflects your calm personality, right? It could be transferable skills when you're telling your story. Why did you get into coding and what makes you a better developer? Maybe you have some management experience and that gives you really a one-up on the competition because you can really do the project management at the same time as you're coding. And your interests are also important. So I'm really interested, for example, in mental health, mental fitness. So if I would apply for a company that does that, and I mentioned that on my portfolio, then they see the link and say, hey, this person is already into what we are doing and has the skills to do their job at our company. This is great. I want to invite her to an interview. So after you wrote those user stories, you can just come back to them during the process of creating your portfolio, but also after to really check them off and say, okay, this user story is now true because I implemented this and this and this. How do we get started? So maybe you started already with your portfolio, that's great. But if you're starting from scratch, start with the basic structure. And the basic structure is based on patterns. So the first thing we want to do is go out there online and check out a lot of portfolios. Check out portfolios that are kind of in your league. So don't look at super advanced developers or super advanced designers. They do all kinds of crazy stuff on their portfolio. Look at juniors, look at mid-level developers and see what they have in common, those portfolios. Do they all have an about me page? Do they all have a contact form in the footer or a contact information in the footer? Do they have a contact page? What do they show on the dashboard? And just find common things, because those common things is probably what the hiring manager is seeing every day, what makes the portfolio familiar to them and what they expect from your portfolio. You could go like all kinds of crazy, but then the hiring manager can't scan your portfolio in 3 minutes and they can't find what they're looking for in no time. Yeah, I think that covers it all from this page. I looked for some portfolios that show a great user experience and have things in common. So I would like to show you these portfolios, and then you could call out what they have in common, what kind of patterns you can detect. So this portfolio is Charlene's portfolio. This is her main page. Couple of projects. And especially look at the navigation. Then we have Brittany's portfolio, some animations. And then you can already see like, what do these navigations have in common? What do they do on their dash, on their front page, on their home page? How many projects are they showing? I will send you the links to all these portfolios later on, so you can check them out more in detail. What do you notice? What do they have in common?
It's very concise. It's not too wordy. You can see everything at a quick glance. And everything's very simple to find what as a hiring manager you'd want to find.
Exactly. There's a lot of white space, but that's not bad because that lets you focus on really only the pieces, the projects that they want to point out. A couple of more, but my Zoom bar is in the way. It won't help probably. Yeah. What else can you notice?
Everything's very minimal.
Yeah. Minimal and clean.
The first thing you see is a splash page.
Yeah, their homepage. And what do they show? What do you see first?
Their names.
A simple
Yeah.
photo.
A photo, their names. And then you see this statement sentence, right? You see it here, Charlene has it. Here you see a sentence. And then Brittany also shortly, just in 1 or 2 sentences, kind of a very short introduction to herself, says what she's good at, what she's focusing on, what she's interested in. And just having that already tells the hiring manager what your name is, who you are, and gives a first impression. What do you notice about the navigation items?
Few, not many.
Just a few, yep.
Will you click one of the navigation items? I can see if it goes to another page or the same page. Oh, it does. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're all present. They're not like a drop-down menu, so they're just easy to click right away.
Yes, nothing is hidden. Only a few that you really want to focus on. And then you see what they have in common. They have an about page, they have their work or projects, and they have a contact page, and maybe a resume to download. Because that makes it super easy for the hiring manager to go to their portfolio and download the resume when they need it. And when you see these patterns appear again and again on portfolios, don't do something crazy. You can, of course, add 1 or 2 maybe that you think would be a good idea and test that maybe, how it works. It's also about iteration. But when you see this is the pattern, try to stick to it. Try to make it familiar to the hiring manager, as I said before, and have that too, because that is kind of the pattern that the user has in their mind. I want to see projects. I go to that portfolio, which is probably the first and last name to find it easily. And then I go to work or projects. And then I will find what I'm looking for. Okay. So here it is a little bit summarized. The homepage reflects personality. So a lot of people have a picture there. They showcase mostly 3 projects, sometimes 4. Focus on your best projects. If you don't have that many projects at the beginning, no problem at all. Show maybe the progress over time. Like when I came from a bootcamp, I had 3 projects and I just thought, how do I make the user, how do I explain to the user that these are my projects, but that I had this great progress from the first month to the last month. So I implemented a progress bar that said, this is that month, that happened in that month, this happened the next month, and that in the next month. And then they could see my progress over time. So that's also an idea that you could implement. Highlight the contact details in the footer. Some people include social media links, which is okay if it's relevant. So if you have Behance or some other profile, GitHub, could be relevant. Something that represents your work and your professional, your professional side more than your personal side, where you show a bunch of pictures on Instagram that show you in a hammock or something. If it's relevant, you can definitely include that in your portfolio, and that could also represent who you are and what you're doing. A LinkedIn link is always good, but don't forget to update your LinkedIn then. In the navigation, you have projects or work, about, maybe the resume and contact, as I mentioned before. And then you can either have your projects linked directly to your code, or you have an additional page where you maybe elaborate on your process. So what was the problem I tried to solve? What was my role in this project? Maybe you were just one of the developers that worked on it, and then you can present that you're also really good at teamwork. Your tool and tech stack, your process, and then you can show your code, and also maybe talk about your learnings. Not every project will be perfect in the beginning, but that's totally fine if you learn something from it. So if you just add a paragraph that said, I learned this and this and that from that, which I will implement in my next project, and which will help me to grow from this, that is something that is super valuable to a hiring manager. You can sketch your ideas out, which I recommend. It's totally something that we designers do, but it doesn't have to be in Figma, or it doesn't have to be super high fidelity. It could just be on pen and paper. Sketch out where you want to place a navigation, where you want to place your projects, and have a little bit an idea. And when you have these wireframes ready, try to commit to them. My fault was during my, or really a learning experience, I have to reframe it, was that I created a portfolio, then I browsed again, saw a super new idea. Oh, that's great. I want to remodel my whole portfolio. And then I did it again and again and again. And it took me so much time to get settled on one idea. So you can better commit early and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This will be my first version of the portfolio. And then when that's done and online and live, then you can iterate again. Don't make the same mistake that I made of iterating and never publishing a portfolio. Now it's live though, but it took me some time. So sketches save you time. They help you to get the ideas out, and then you can make the decision to stick with it. And when you have those sketches, you can basically start to code, or you can choose to use a no-code platform. And I'm a little bit biased because I love Webflow a lot, and I can't code. So I did my my portfolio on Webflow, with Webflow, and it was easy to use. It is, of course, the kind of learning curve that you have to go through to learn Webflow. But when you understand it, it's really like drag and drop boxes, a container, a div in your container, then you add text, you have Flexbox that you can use and center and align your content. You can just drop images in it. It creates a lot of agility. And you also have the option in Webflow to create a CMS, and then you could have a structure for your projects and just fill in the content of your projects. The same site gets generated again and again. You can easily make changes. You could cut the time shorter. I'm not sure how fast you are with coding, but no code, when after you learned it, can be faster. That's the idea behind it. And you could add an additional skill to your skill set that you're presenting on your resume, that you know Webflow or Wix or Notion now. If you want to code your portfolio, that's totally encouraged as well, because you can make it one of your projects. You can mention on your website that this whole portfolio has been created by yourself, and it shows off your coding skills. You have no limitations. You can just customize it as you want. You're even more free, and you can really stand out from other portfolios, make it totally different if you don't use a template. If you decide to use Webflow, there are a lot of templates that you can choose from, and then you can customize them. So that could make it quicker and easier as well. So there are some pros and cons. Just because you are in a coding bootcamp doesn't mean you can't use no code. You could just add it to one of your skills, but yeah, totally up to you. The portfolios that I just showed you were 3 of the 6 that I think have a really great user experience and great UI. I will send those links to you in the Zoom chat after this presentation. A couple more tips and tricks that I collected for you all. Never stop exploring and iterating so you can get more inspiration even after you started, but try to commit to your first idea. But then after it's live, you can iterate again. Some people, there's this cool designer on YouTube, Misco. He is publishing a new portfolio every year to show his progress that he makes over time. I think that's a really cool idea. A lot of work as well. But yeah, show your best work, but it's also okay to show progress. As I mentioned, if you don't have a lot of work right now, show your beginning projects, where you started, where you are now, and your progress that you made. Keep your portfolio up to date. That is easier said than done. When you have a full-time job, you probably don't pay so much attention to your portfolio anymore, but try to keep it up to date and add new projects. Make your portfolio searchable. So first name, last name looks boring, but when you are the hiring manager and you think from the hiring manager's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, Lisa Panke. How do I find her portfolio again? Sure, lisapanke.com. Make your portfolio findable on LinkedIn, on GitHub. Drop the link there, mention it. And keep, of course, your LinkedIn up to date, very important one. Practice your case studies out loud. So if you decide to give more content on context around your projects and really create a project page, you could try to practice them out loud and explain more, because in the interview, you might be asked to go through them or to elaborate on your project, who you worked with, what the problem was, what the result was, what you learned from it. And by practicing that out loud, it helps you to articulate yourself while you're in that interview and gives you practice also the confidence that you need to present it. And most important, seek feedback from peers, from mentors. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to provide feedback on your portfolio and work with you together on it. And I think that brings me to my last slide, which says, take your time. Building a portfolio is hard and can feel very overwhelming. And that's why it's so important that you have a supportive environment that helps you to succeed. So you can reach out to me on Slack. You can book a session. I have these half-hour sessions on Calendly with some students. I work every week on their portfolio. Sometimes it's just a couple of check-ins, but I'm really happy to provide feedback, give you some suggestions, have a look at it. So I'm going to drop those portfolio links, my Calendly link, and I think a link to my portfolio, so you can just have a look how I did it in the chat. And yeah, check it out and feel free to reach out anytime. Okay, so do you have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for your time today. This was really interesting. I feel like I've got a lot to mull over, so thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you again for coming in. Could you give like an overview of your approach when you were doing your portfolio, like just a little schedule or an idea of that?
How I built my portfolio, you
Yes.
mean? Yeah. Let me think back. That was like a year or two ago, a while ago. I didn't do the sketches first. That's why I recommend doing it. Really treating it like a project and wireframing it a little bit. So, and sticking to that idea. So that was my biggest learning. And getting that inspiration in first, as I mentioned. So basically the whole presentation was based on my experience and my learnings. So get some inspiration, find the patterns, then sketch it out. And then I use Webflow to create it. And then I iterated and iterated until I was satisfied and comfortable launching it. I'm still a little bit shy to show it because I feel now I could do an even better job after learning so much from my mentor at Zeal. So I need to update it again.
Thanks. Yeah, that whole planning thing, the wireframing, like I skipped over it. I have so many incomplete portfolios because I kept, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, that's a great idea. So yeah, definitely
Right.
wireframe it so you have your idea and don't get
Yeah.
swayed. Yeah.
Even make a line under your wireframes and sign it and say, I'm not gonna change. I stick to it. Or have somebody who holds you accountable, even better.
I have a
So I have a question for you.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
What do you do when you feel stuck? Like you don't know what to do next, or you're not feeling maybe creative in that moment, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, what I should dive into next.
Good question. One is step away from your computer, do something totally different and take a breather. Second is probably reach out to some of my peers or to my mentors and ask for advice. I totally have days where I don't feel creative at all. And then I do something more with structure and management related, find some other tasks to do. But then sometimes in the morning I meditate and that gives me creativity. And then I just start, or maybe late at night, I feel that burst of creativity and then I go to it again, to the computer and continue. So don't force it. It will come to you. You could also just browse online until you feel inspired. So many ways. But don't feel too much pressure because that just blocks you.
Lisa, do you have a favorite font or a list of favorite fonts for different situations, like fonts for readability or fonts for like coding? And if so, can we get access to your favorite fonts?
That is a great question. I don't have that yet, but that could be a great project for me and my design team at Zeal to create like maybe a Notion page of our favorite fonts. There are some designers that say you only need 5 fonts in your life, and one of them is definitely Inter, Helvetica. So just choose a clear font for your portfolio that is easily readable. You could mention your name in a more like serif font and make it pretty or set some accents, but readability is key, simplicity is key. So don't go too crazy and no Comic Sans.
That's a good question in the chat. The question is, when did you know that you wanted to focus on UI and UX?
Good question. I have a management background, so I led some teams before in tech startups, and I was a project manager. And when I was a project manager, I worked a lot with UX people, and I was like, this is so fascinating, and I want my job to be a little bit more meaningful. So I felt I want to create something. I want to be more creative. I want to leverage my background, the management part, but also in tech. And I want to create something that really has meaning and speaks to the user, really create something for the user. And by working with UX designers, it just popped up and I was like, this is what I want to do. So just make the switch. And I started the bootcamp with Career Foundry. It took me 6 months. And then I built my portfolio, applied for jobs for a couple of months, which was really scary, but I got through it. And then I found Zeal and Zeal found me. So even if you want to chat about that with me, being devastated about applications or stuff, or how to iterate on your portfolio, but also your resume and your LinkedIn maybe, because that was key for me. In the beginning, I didn't get any interviews and I iterated it again. Every couple of weeks, every month, I redid, not completely redid it, but improved all my things that I needed to apply for a job, all the assets. And then at some point after 2-3 months, they were there. They were at that point where the interviews came in. So don't give up, just iterate. And just test it out and see what works and what doesn't work.
Lisa, could you share all that stuff you just placed in the Zoom chat and Slack?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Which channel, general or what's good?
Lisa probably doesn't have access to our cohort Slack. Do you mind putting it in there, Shirley?
I can't copy this. If you put it in general, I can copy it over. I can't copy it off of the Zoom.
Oh. You can send it to me, Lisa, and I can
okay.
post it in there. I see the problem.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We really appreciate this time.
Thank you.